Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Tuesday. It's February 10th, 2026. We're very glad you're with us this afternoon. Please note this event is being recorded. It will be be loaded up to the Career USA YouTube channel for anybody to watch in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. I encourage everybody who's on Zoom to open up the chat window, put in your name, put in what position you're looking for. Give us two or three target companies we may be able to help you with. Put in your LinkedIn address, your email address. You never know who's on this call today who you can help somebody else as they're landing in their job. So I encourage you to reach out to everybody else who's on the call today because you never know who you will be able to help. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon, and apparently somebody bought one 3 months ago because I got a little notice from Amazon that a payment was coming soon. So I appreciated whoever did that. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. That group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader landed a job. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, also known as the PIC crew. Don't wait until you have an interview to schedule an interview. Practice now, practice early, practice often, because once somebody finds you on LinkedIn, what are they going to do? They're going to call you on the phone. And how well you're able to talk and communicate your ideas is what's going to get you your next job. Well, we have four really good presenters who present on a monthly basis. They rotate through. Today, our speaker is Kurt VandeMotter. He's a retained search executive at Linked Executive Search, and he's going to talk about LinkedIn from his point of view. Good afternoon, Kurt.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Now you can hear me. Okay. Sorry I was a minute late. I hope you didn't panic.
No, well, I was a little bit panicked, but
Sorry, I was typing a letter, and so all good. Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad that you could be here today, and I think that as I've done these presentations for Jeff for a couple of years now, I think that it's really important that everybody on the call understands and knows that this call is not about me. This is your time. I volunteer and I've donated this time to you and through Jeff, but I really mean it sincerely that you found out about this seminar. You're here, and I want to make sure that everybody on the call gets all the information and answers to all their questions that they've got. So at any time you've got a question, type it into the box. And Jeff's my wingman. He'll keep me on course, and he will make sure that all the questions get answered. If you've got a question that's not even on topic of what we're talking about right now, I don't care. It's if you've got a question that you've always had a desire to ask a recruiter, then this is a great time to get those questions out. Um, so a little bit about my history, and not that you all need to know this, but a little bit about my background. I'm 16 years. I've owned Linked Executive Search. We're a retained search firm. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But prior to that, I came out of corporate America, companies like PepsiCo, Dr. Pepper 7 Up, AT&T, and then some startup technology companies. And I was never in HR or in recruiting. I was always in sales, marketing, and operations. So I'm not a recruiter by design. I've kind of learned the system, learned the technology, learned the trade on my own. But today recognized by Forbes as the 13th best recruiting firm in the United States and number one in the state of Texas. So how do I get that? I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's a nice accolade. But that was yesterday and today's today. So let's focus on you and everybody that's on this call. Um, Jeff, I think a really good place to start is to really start on the recruiters, the type of recruiters. I find that executives at all levels have not had a lot of exposure to this. So let's just talk about it because I think it's a good foundation as we start to talk about working with recruiters. So in-house recruiters. We know these people. A lot of you have worked for companies. You've used these people. They're recruiters that are hired by the company. They work in the building. They work for the executives. I talk about like T-Mobile. Some of those recruiters have they might have 45, 50, 60 jobs in their funnel they're working on, but they're typically in funnels, meaning that they're even either filling retail jobs in across the country, or they're filling technology jobs, or they're filling on-site technology to help broaden their bandwidth. But the bottom line is that most of their recruiters work in silos. The important thing is that all recruiters that are internal typically have a lot of jobs on their plate. So when we're talking internal recruiters, we want to be very cognizant of the fact that they're very busy. And I think that it's also important to know that these internal recruiters know exactly what they're looking for. They are highly, highly not likely, okay, to take a resume into a hiring manager unless it checks 98% of the boxes. They've been working with the hiring manager or managers for a long time. They know what they're looking for. And this is not the time for them to take a candidate that says, I know we're looking for this, but Sally could be a great fit. And here's why I think in my communication and what I've learned from Sally, why I think we should talk to her further. They just won't do it. There's too much risk, and they don't want to waste their executives team. So they rely very heavily on applicant tracking systems. They're able to put all kinds of blocks in there as it relates to what they're actually looking for. Applicant tracking systems have gotten to be very, very sophisticated. So it's really, really important that you take the time when you're filling out a job application that's going to an internal, it's not going through a recruiter, that you have taken the time to make sure that your resume matches up to that job as closely as you can. Make sure that you use the same words. If you've had the same title, but you're in a different company, it was named something differently, because we're in that time where it's really fun and creative to give people creative titles, and you all know what I'm talking about there. But the title for this is um, media media buyer. This is not the time to put in a fancy word for media buyer. If that's what they're looking for, that's the title of the job, then that's what should be on your resume. Um, Outside, there's two types of outside firms. So if you're a hiring manager and your internal team hasn't been able to find the person, or let's say they just don't have an internal team, then a company can go to 4 or 5, 3 or 4, 2 outside contingent recruiters. Nobody gets paid any money. All they do is sign a contract that says, if I bring you the right candidate, I will get paid X. So those are contingent jobs. The only recruiting firm that gets paid is the one that's brought the candidate. They generally work very fast because they're trying to get resumes in front of the hiring manager quicker than the other competition is. I did this when I first started the business for about a week. And then I realized that I'd rather lose money on the golf course than do contingent work, because you work all day, you find some great candidates, you send them in, and then the next day you find out that the company's already hired somebody, or they've already seen those candidates, or for whatever reason they're not interested in those candidates. So it's just a real stick in the eye. Outside retained search firms, that's what I do. We are exclusive to the search, so we do not compete with anybody. When a company decides that they're going to use a retained search firm, they pay a retainer upfront that's non-refundable. Um, and then we get paid, in different firms have different pricing models. But the bottom line is that I've got skin in the game with the company because they've paid me a chunk of money up front. So I know that they're going to take my calls, they're going to take the interviews, they're going to listen to my advice. They're willing to think outside the box. They want to think outside the box. This is a role that they haven't been able to fill themselves, or it's a role that they are confidentially filling because there's somebody in the role today that they are going to be letting go. So they can't publicly tell the world that this job is open. So everything's got to be done confidentially. Um, but I spent a lot of time with my employers to not only get to know the executive team and the job description and the culture and all of that, but I want to get to know hiring managers. I want to go and visit the organization to get a feel for the facility, and if it's a manufacturing facility, I want to walk the floor. I want to feel the vibe. I want to get to know their organization, because ultimately I'm going to be selling that company going forward. And so I've got to be able to be professional in my approach and in my confidence in talking about what they do. Candidates are always going to have questions that I can't answer, but I've got a really tight relationship with the employers that I work with. So that's a little bit of the lay of the land. Now let's keep that slide up because um, let's go back, Jeff. Let's keep the slide up because what I want to encourage you to do is that when you're dealing with in-house recruiters, the first thing is, let's say you're driving down 75, you're driving down, I don't care where you're at in the country because there's a lot of people on this call that aren't in Dallas. But let's just say you're driving somewhere and the phone rings, it's a number you don't recognize. You've got two options. You can let it go to voicemail or you can pick it up. If you pick it up and you're driving 75 miles an hour and it is a recruiter or it's a company calling to talk to you about your background, you've got to be positioned to listen really well, and then figure out a way to get off the highway so that you can have a conversation. And I'm not here to judge or make any recommendations, but when you're dealing with in-house recruiters, you want to be very smack. You want to be very spot on. You want your resume to match the job description of what they're looking for. You want to be concise. These people are generally younger in their career. And I don't talk about age very often, but these are generally jobs that a lot of people coming out of college take. And so they haven't had the experience that you and I have had. And so, again, if it says customer service, acquisition, and retention manager, and you've done all that, but your job description says acquisitions manager, and it doesn't have the rest of it in there, there's not an inside recruiter that'll take your call. When you're dealing with outside contingent recruiters, you want to work really quickly. Ask great questions up front. Be prepared to take notes and ask them as many questions as you can as far as getting to know the organization and the work that they're doing. In addition to how long has the job been open, and other questions that you've got, you want to try to get as much clarity as you possibly can quickly, so that when you send them a resume, you're sending them a resume again that's as close to the target zone as you can possibly get it. Um, these folks are moving really quick. They generally won't spend an hour or two on the phone getting to know you and asking you a lot of questions, unless they're a contingent firm and they're the only one that's working on the search, which is an anomaly out there, but it does happen occasionally. So you want to be precise, you want to be quick, and you want to be provide them as much information as you can to help them do their job and make their job easier. And then with outside retained search firms, take your time, listen to what they're looking for. I think that, and it doesn't, I could be in any one of these jobs. I think the advice that I give candidates, and you can take that slide down now, Jeff. I think the advice that I give candidates is that when you're working with a recruiter, no matter what kind of recruiter is, candidates have a tendency to want to tell me everything about their life. Okay. So I was just out of town for a week. My daughter got married down in Cancun. And I got a call from somebody that I didn't recognize the number, but it wasn't a spam. And I took the call, and it was somebody that was an executive that was looking for a job. And he didn't even ask me, is this a good time to talk for 5 minutes? He didn't. He just went right into his blurb, And it went on for 18 minutes. I mean, I was just walking and listening for him for 18 minutes, vomit all over the phone, telling me why he left his job, what happened, what's doing this, and who's doing that. And I'm telling you, I mean, it's always a mind swell, but I was walking, I had my earbuds in, so I really didn't he wasn't affecting my day. And finally, after about 16, 17 minutes, I said, I'm really sorry to bother you, but could you do me a favor? I'm in Mexico at my daughter's wedding. Could you call me back next week? Because I really do want to talk to you, but now's not the time. So, whoever the recruiter is, just make sure that you've heard, everybody on this phone has heard about it, the 30-second elevator pitch. This is a great time when you're talking to a recruiter, you're talking to anybody new, to launch into your 30-second elevator pitch. Jeff was talking earlier about the practice interview team. Awesome place to go to practice that, or to practice any pieces of your interviewing. I can't offer you enough advice on getting practice and feeling comfortable talking about yourself and highlighting the things in a quick and you know condensed version that will get your point across and keep the attention of the recruiter. But do not when you're on the phone with anybody, and everybody make sure you write this with your topic, do not vomit on the phone over the job, because you don't know anything about what I'm looking for yet until you've given me a chance to talk to you a little bit about what I'm searching for and what am I looking for. I'm not going to suggest that I'm that much different than all other recruiters, but I always, when I'm working with the company, one of the things I always try to get from them over the course of before we start talking to candidates is, what are the biggest problems that we're trying to solve? What are the biggest problems that we're trying to solve? Because I want to find candidates that have solved those problems in other companies if I can. Okay. So what are the top 3 or 4 things that you want to solve? It could be a manufacturing issue, it could be an HR issue, it could be redesigning a sales organization. There's a lot of different things, but what are the biggest problems? Because I need to ask questions around that. So I have a list of questions that I'm coming to every candidate with, that are surrounded by, not tell me a little bit about yourself, or have you ever worked in this industry, or why did you leave your last job? Those aren't important to me right now. At the beginning, I want to know whether you have solved or you've done some of the things that we're looking for this executive to do. That's how you get past first base with me. The second piece of it is, I always ask in the first 10 minutes, excuse me, I always ask salary. I need to know right up front what you're making and what your expectations are. Now, I'm the recruiter, I'm working for the company. So I'm not an internal recruiter. A little bit different. So you've got to soft walk your answer there sometimes. But if you're talking to a retained search firm, it's okay to say to them, well, in my last job, I was making $190,000 and I had a 20% bonus. But I was in an organization that was in heavy growth, and they were going through some really different kinds of things. So what my ultimate goal is to stay in that range, but I could live with 160 to $170,000, as long as it's got benefits and something else. So you can curtail that conversation in your answer, to open up a soft conversation. What I'm asking for, the reason I ask the question is because I finished a CFO search for a company over in Midland, Texas, about 8 months ago, and CFOs in the oil and gas business, they get paid very well. And so I needed, as I talked to candidates, to understand what their expectations are and what they were making, so that I could understand whether or not we could afford them. Okay. And in this particular case, I think I had $350,000 to spend. So as I talk to candidates, if the candidate says, well, I'm really looking for a $700,000 job, then I have to go, okay, stop. That is not in my pay grade. I can't authorize anything that large. Tell me what's in that 700,000. Is that all base, or was there some bonus and other incentives in that as well? So be prepared to give a teardown of where and how you're making your money. But expect that question from especially retained search for people, even contingent, pretty quickly in the conversation. And I want you to practice so that it's fluid and you don't stumble on it, because you're all of a sudden you've got a recruiter on the phone. You haven't talked to a recruiter in 2 months, and there's a job that's a great fit, and you're really excited about it. And they ask you, "What's your salary?" And you go, "Well, $120,000 would be great." Well, maybe they got $200,000 to spend. Okay. So follow up and ask, am I in the range for what they're looking for? Because again, I don't try to accelerate costs with my clients. So I don't try to take in candidates that are making over or right at the ceiling. Um, but if I can give somebody an incentive to leave a company today and they're at 180,000 and I can get them to 220 or 230 because there's a budget there, then I'm going to make sure that I do that. And I will negotiate and work with you or work with the candidate to make sure that they get that as well. So those are some upfront questions that's really important. Jeff, do we have any questions out there?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, let's keep plowing through. So one of the things, normally what I would do on this call is I would take you guys into LinkedIn Recruiter. Um, and I would give you a demonstration of exactly what it looks like. But the recruiting business, if any of you are thinking about getting into the recruiting business, this is probably not the time to do it because it's very, very slow right now. Um, that may be one of the questions that some of you have is, can you give me a pulse and what's really going on in the market? Um, I just had lunch with one of the executives at Challenger, Gray Christmas. They're an outplacement firm in Dallas. And he said to me at the beginning, he said, your last 6 months have had to been pretty slow. And I said, well, the last 9 months have been pretty slow. So they're the conversations out there. I mean, they're recruiters are not getting the calls. We're not getting the calls. We're not getting the business that we used to get. And I can tell you why, or I think why, but that's really not important. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be building relationships with recruiters. Finding a job is a full-time job, and it's the hardest job you'll ever have. There's no question about it. You get rejected every day. You are excited about jobs that you don't get calls back on. People don't return your calls. You get ghosted. So there's a lot of things that are going on out there that don't make it easy for people like yourself that are actively looking for a job. So I get that, but I want to give you some tips and trades and suggestions. So, as I said, normally I take you into LinkedIn. I can't do that because I canceled my subscription. My subscription was $2,000 a month to use LinkedIn Recruiter. And when you're not doing a whole lot of business, it doesn't make sense to continue that contract. So, without going into LinkedIn Recruiter, I could still give you a lot of information that's going to help. One of the best pieces of advice that I can give you is that, there's a lot of talk about AI and what's going on in AI out in the search world right now. My son happens to work for a company that's in the process of building some AI tools that will help recruiters find candidates more quickly, supposedly. Um, there's a lot of other companies. I've seen probably 6 presentations from AI companies that profess that they've got a better way to find candidates quicker, easier, more qualified, more information, meaning that they can give you phone numbers and email addresses than my use of LinkedIn Recruiter or any other product. The bottom line is, guess what? Every one of their databases is still LinkedIn. Okay. So my son will talk about it all day long, that their biggest challenge is every day their coders are trying to figure out how to get around the gates that LinkedIn put up last night. Okay. So LinkedIn is trying to keep all these all these projects and products off of their page. And you've got all these companies that are out there trying to scrape all the data. But the bottom line, it's all LinkedIn data, 98% of it. Some executives that are speakers, or they've got a bio out there somewhere else, or they're an engineer and they've written white papers. Their information's out on the internet and maybe in some places that they get picked up on. But I would suggest that 85 to 95% of the candidates that these AI products are pulling from LinkedIn. So, what does that mean to you? That means that you've got to have the best LinkedIn profile that you've ever had, that you ever can have. Back in the day, when you change your profile, LinkedIn would send a note to everybody in your network and say, Danielle just updated her LinkedIn profile. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. So you can go in and change your LinkedIn profile every day if you want to. Okay. Now, I don't encourage that. I think that, you can go in and make modifications on maybe a weekly or a monthly basis. But I do want you to invest the time to get your LinkedIn profile absolutely the best it can be. I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions, but then I also encourage you to come to some of these other seminars. Terry Sullivan does a bang up job from a technology perspective. Your head will swell. Better have a piece of paper and a lot of a full ink pen, because he's got so much information from a technology perspective about how you can increase your percentages, increase the ratios within LinkedIn. But he's got an amazing presentation. He gets paid to do this presentation. That's why it's not taped. Okay. So he is a pro at what he does. Go to that presentation. But let me give you a few tips that he probably talks about, and others on these calls talk about as well. But let me give you a few tips. First and foremost is that I want you to make sure you've got a current picture in your profile. If your name is Lee and you and your husband are in your LinkedIn profile, when I click on your profile, I really don't know whether I'm talking to Lee, the man, or the woman. Okay. So just one picture of you, not a partner, not a spouse. Second thing I want you to do is I want you to make sure that in your summary section, the about section, it's the section that's below your picture. It's the best free real estate that somebody looking for a job can use. 2,500 characters, Jeff?
2,600, I believe.
2,600. They keep moving it up. That is free real estate for you to talk about who you are and what you've done. What goes in there? Keywords. Keywords go in there. But I don't want you if you go to my profile, you'll see that I've got just a list of keywords. I'm a recruiter, I'm an executive search, I'm a headhunter, I'm all these keywords, because that's how you find me. I don't necessarily want you to write your profile like that, but I want you to incorporate as many keywords into the sentences and you talk about yourself. Do not copy and paste your resume in this section. Okay. This is an active session in an active voice, so you get a chance to tell people who you are and what you've done. Where do you get your key search words, or how do you continue to increase that number and make sure that you're getting as many hits as you possibly can? Well, one place you go is to go back to old job descriptions. Okay. And some of you may or may not have those, but they include all the kind of keywords that you've had to use in your past performance. I was in the bottling business, and maybe one of the things that I should have put in my profile when I was, a number of years ago, was route settlement. It's an old word. Nobody ever talks about it anymore. But there are occasionally companies that are in the CPG world or in the consumer packaged goods business that do have and use route settlement. So that could be a keyword that I could have pulled out from my past and thrown it in my profile that would have picked up a few hits here and there. I don't know. But old job descriptions, your resume, obviously. Now, AI tools working amazingly well. If you're not an AI user, many of you are, I'm sure. Take those documents, put them into AI, and ask it to pull out all the keywords. It'll take 30 seconds and you're done. You copy those, put them into your LinkedIn profile, and then write sentences about what you've done. Past job descriptions that you're looking at today. Okay. You're getting job descriptions. You're seeing job descriptions. Go through those, either throw them into AI products or highlight it yourself, but go through there and make a list of the keywords of what they're looking for. And if you've done it, I don't want you to lie, but if you've done it, I want you to bring those keywords into your LinkedIn profile. Okay. Talking to other executives. Okay. Looking at other executive profiles. Is a great way to identify keywords. But keywords is absolutely the critical basis of LinkedIn and making sure that your LinkedIn profile sings. Now, let me give you the backup and support on that. Why is that important? Because all of these AI tools, they're doing the same thing, y'all. Okay. It's crazy, but I watch them build their profile and what they're looking for. And they'll take and they'll say, this is so cool. It's so much different. It's like, it's really no different than LinkedIn. Okay. They give you an AI tool and it allows you to put in a geography if you want, but you don't have to. You can keep it open to the United States. When we're recruiters, we like to start with a big funnel of candidates, but not 5,000 because I can't look at 5,000 profiles in a day, but I can look at 500. Okay. So we like to start big. So if we put into the search criteria, we're looking for these keywords and it only gives us 20 candidates, then we're going to add or take off some things because we don't want it to be that manicular. We want a bigger search. We hone it down by talking to and having conversations with candidates. So um, it's absolutely key that those words are just scattered throughout your LinkedIn profile. Whether it's AI, they do the same thing. They put into the AI that they're looking for this and this and this, that they're looking for an executive that has got this experience. They put keywords throughout this little profile that they build, and then they hit the go button. Now the only difference is that in their product, what you get is you'll get a blast of 10 or 15 candidates. And then throughout the day, you continue to get one or two more or four more. You go to bed, you wake up in the morning, you got 8 more to look at. So the AI tool does continue to scrape and scratch and find and look for candidates in other places where LinkedIn is more stagnant. Okay. It doesn't have that AI technology built into it yet, but I guarantee it's coming. I guarantee you they're watching everybody out there that's in the space and trying to find ways to perfect it and add tools and technology that will help their subscribers that use LinkedIn Recruiter to find candidates better and easier and provide more information. So keywords are critical. That was 2,600 characters. Great place to put those keywords, but then throughout your LinkedIn profile. Don't again copy and paste your resume. Build out each one of the jobs. How far do you go back? That's up to you. If you've worked for 25 years, you may use put in the last five jobs that maybe it's the last 15 years, and then you put earlier career, you work for these companies. So if you don't want to, you're trying to hide your age, or you don't want to look as you're 60 years old, then there are ways to conceal that. But the fact of the bottom line is, we're going to find out how old you are one way or another. Okay, if that's a concern, if that's a question for the search person that's looking to fill the job, if they are looking for somebody that's only got X number of years, or and I don't, I'm gonna make y'all laugh for a minute. Give me a thumbs up if you like this. I mean, I've had a lot of companies that I've worked for, and very few times has anybody given me criteria about age or sex or nationality or anything else. I worked for a company in New Orleans, and they did tell me that they would not hire a Republican. Okay. So really interesting, because I had to go out there and I asked them, I came across the table, not, I didn't come across the table, but when they told me that, I was like, that is very interesting. How are you going to ask the question of whether they're a Democrat or a Republican? Because I need to know that language from you. I don't think that I can ask that question. I mean, I can find out how many kids people have by having soft conversations about my kids, and then they volunteer to say that I've got 4 kids. I can find out, if there was a time that they wanted somebody that was a strong Christian because it was a Christian based product company. And they asked me, well, how are you going to find out? And I said, that's really easy. I have no problem talking about my faith. And, in this particular case, I'll find a way to insert a question or tell them something about myself, and I'll be able to get a feel for whether or not this family goes to church or not. Um, but that was the one that really drew me, and it was the only time. Um, there have been many a times that the company has said, what we really would like is I do a lot of family business. So a search I conducted over a year ago for a family in South Texas. They were a third generation family owned business, and they were in a very unique sector, and they wanted they want to keep it in the family, but they weren't ready to give the business to anybody in the family. Nobody was ready yet for it. So they really wanted somebody that was between 60 and 65 years old, older in their career, that was willing to end their career with this company. And whether that was at 65 or 70, they wanted somebody to help transition, train, coach, mentor one of the executive or one of the senior members of the family that was leaving Exxon and was coming into this business and needed to learn it from the grassroots. So there are many times that companies are looking for senior people. I don't want you to try to hide anything you've got. We'll find out how old you are if we need to. Age is not important. Um, so your LinkedIn profile, a current picture, use those 1,600 characters or 2,600 characters. Make sure that you have got your phone number and your email address in your LinkedIn profile in that summary section. Okay. Now, some of you are going to say, why is that important? Well, only if I'm connected to you first degree do I get your contact information. So there's only one option as a recruiter when we're searching for candidates. If they haven't given us their phone number or email address, there's only one option, and that's called to send an in-mail. And you will be amazed at the numbers. Only 8 to 9% of candidates reply to in-mails. 8 to 9%. So thankfully, my numbers are in the 20s, like 21, 22%. But now imagine that I'm at my desk and I sit here for an afternoon and I send out 100 emails, in mails. Okay. I'm only going to get 20 back. I'm not going to get 80 back or 70 back. Most recruiters only get 8 or 9 back, maybe 10. Okay. So the odds are very, very low that you're going to reply to my message. This hasn't happened once, it's happened many times in 16 years. I'll get a note from a candidate that says, this sounds like a really interesting job. I'd love to learn more about it. And I'd send them back and say, ha ha, you're cute. I love to hear. I'm so glad I got a chance to hear from you. But we filled this job a year ago. Okay. So, I mean, I hate to be critical, but I'm telling you that in-mails are a recruiter's worst enemy. So if we can click on your profile and there's a phone number or an email address that I can call you directly, you move to the head of the class. Okay. Because I'm trying to talk to as many candidates as I can. I'll give you my process. I'm no different than any other search firm in the world. Okay. We get the search, and within 2 to 3 weeks, the company wants to start seeing profiles. They want to start seeing resumes. They want to know that I've been working for the last 3 weeks and not playing golf every day. Okay. So I've got to build a portfolio of candidates. And I can't do it when only 8% of you are calling or returning my messages and doing it in a timely fashion. So if we could get everybody in LinkedIn to give us their phone numbers and their email addresses, our jobs would be so much easier. Now, some of you that are a little nervous, remember that this is not match.com. Okay. So you're putting your phone number out there, but my number's been in there for a long time, and I don't think I've gotten maybe 2 solicitation calls of people that have wanted to sell me a product. If you don't feel comfortable in putting your phone number out there, then there's a solution by using what is it, Jeff?
Google Voice.
Google Voice. So they don't really have your phone number, but they've got a number they can call you and it comes to your phone. And remember, your email address is not your home address, so they're not coming to get your kids. And I don't mean to laugh about that in today's society, but they don't know where you live. They only have your email address. Okay. And if you get that email and you don't like that email, it's not from somebody that you trust or you respect, or it's not a job that you're interested in, you can just delete it, or you can send a note back that says, no, thanks, don't send me any more information. Okay. So I highly encourage you to put that information in there, because it will increase your activity quickly when you give recruiters your contact information. Okay. Any questions, Jeff?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. Raymond asked, I have a list of recruiters that I've gathered. Do we call them or email them or LinkedIn with them to
Absolutely
message
all of the
them?
above. All of the above. But Raymond, what I want you to be ready for is the fact that recruiters don't get paid by candidates. Okay. We don't get paid by you guys. We get paid by companies that want to fill jobs. So not all recruiters are going to take the time to take your call or return a call or return an email. But do you want to be on their database? Do you want to be in front of them? Absolutely. And I encourage you to put together a thoughtful letter. Um, and you can use an idea that I'm going to put up here. I'm going to give you here in a little bit that can help with that. And you could put this in a separate category. But I would definitely, but again, definitely reach out to those 20, 30, 40 recruiters. Make sure you're calling the recruiters that if you've used a recruiter before that's placed you in a job, make sure they know that you're looking for a job. Many executives forget about that person. Many sometimes they've retired or maybe they're not in the business anymore, but make sure you make that phone call on the top of your list. But in your job search, your network is your net worth. Okay. Your network is your net worth. And so you want to try to talk to and get on as many people's radar as you possibly can, Raymond. Um, but just don't get mad. Don't get frustrated when they ghost you. They don't call you back because, again, they're not getting paid by you. They're getting paid by companies. And many recruiters don't see the value in the conversations that I'm having with you today. This is my payback. I sleep at night knowing that I've helped somebody, but not all recruiters think that way. Fair enough? Okay.
All right, another question. When a recruiter is searching to find someone, are they using a title or a star story factor to find the candidate?
Define a story, a star story factor,
I mean, it'll be the skill. I'm assuming that
right?
you'll type in skills. I think when you've shown job searches, you put in a job title and you list two or three or four skills that you're looking for,
Yep.
and you see what pops up.
Yep. And many times what we do, and this is what the AI tools help with, is that, and recruiters are doing more of this, but is for instance taking a job title and call it, let's just call it something simple, VP of Sales and Marketing, and they're putting that into AI, and they're saying, AI, what other names are companies calling these executives? And then they'll put those into their search tool as well, because it's kind of that old school of trying to meet a candidate where they're at instead of where whether they're right ready. If you don't know that company XYZ is looking for you and the title is different than what you've got, then you can't change. You don't wouldn't know that. It's only until you get the job description and you started a conversation that you can modify your resume. So, um, but that's exactly what we do. We put in titles, but it may be six titles for that one job. And then we put in keywords and we see how big the funnel is. If it's really small, then we may take out some of those keywords and we might search for titles, or we might search just a couple titles, take out keywords. So we balance it back and forth to see what the mix is and see how many candidates. Remember on LinkedIn, I can look at I can look at 20 profiles in an hour probably really easily. Um, uh, there's just a lot of stuff in people's profiles that um, you know when you might be looking for this, but when you put it into LinkedIn, it doesn't give you exactly that. Um, and so again, that's why we want to make sure that we're capturing as many keywords as we can to open up that funnel and get exposure to more companies than we might have gotten last week.
All right. Danielle asked, what's the best way to ask for a recommendation? Through LinkedIn prompts or email and call them directly.
Write a recommendation for them is the best way to get a recommendation back. If you write a recommendation for an executive, then they get a prompt back, or they used to at least, that says, "Do you accept this recommendation, and would you like to write a recommendation for Danielle?" If that's not working quick enough, Danielle, then what I would do is I'd encourage you to select 4 or 5 people, and I would send them emails, and then I'd follow it up with a phone call. And I would request, here's, this is a time where you can take some liberty in that, you know, make sure that you're not just asking for a recommendation, y'all. Um, in networking, as you go out and have networking meetings, one of the things that you'll find, as many of you have experienced already, is you're sitting down with somebody and you tell them what you're doing, what you're looking for, and they offer to help. And they want to introduce you to Sally at company XYZ, and that's awesome. My recommendation to you when you get back to your desk is you send them a thank you note and you say, that was very kind of you to offer to make an introduction to Sally. What I've given you below is some information that will help communicate what I'd like you to say to Sally. Okay. You're basically writing the email for the executive so that all they have to do is cut and paste it and then put a few words of their own in. Okay. It accelerates that introduction tenfold because every one of you on this call have been in the situation before where you have been in a meeting, offered to make a recommendation. But what happens? We get out to the car, we look at our voice messages. Your husband or your wife or your partner called, and there's been an emergency here. You've got to go do this. So the office is calling, and we get busy. Okay. And it's not that Danielle wasn't important that I want to write that recommendation or I want to make that introduction. But now it's 3 days, 5 to 6 days later, and I've forgotten what Danielle really wants me to tell Sally. Okay. So again, do it and you all are executives. You know what I'm talking about. Do it in a very soft, familiar, kind way. But below is some information that you can add to your email that would make that introduction easier and quicker. If you've got any questions, call me. Okay. But that will accelerate. Danielle, same thing will accelerate. I am looking for a couple of key executives in my past career to write recommendations. And what my focus is on right now is these 5 variables. If you could include these in your recommendation, I'd greatly appreciate it. If you got any questions, call me. So I would send the email and then I'd wait 3 days, check to make sure that it hasn't gone up because the last thing you want to do is call and say, hey, can you give me a referral? And they're like, well, Danielle, I did that the first day you sent it to me. So you could call and thank them. Thank you very much. And do touch them again. But if they haven't done it in 3 or 4 days, then it's fine to call. And if you get a voicemail, it's just as simple. Hey, Sally, you said that you'd help me with a recommendation. I know you're crazy busy. If you've got any questions, call me. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, and I'll touch base with you in a couple of days. So, when do you stop calling people to ask them for either the referral or the introduction or to do the reference? When they tell you to stop calling. Now, for you, a lot of you, that may be hard. If you're not a salesperson and you're not used to hearing the word no, then that may be very hard for some of you to understand because, it's salespeople. If you're not a salesperson and you're in a job search, I would highly recommend that you align yourself, network with, find an accountability group with a salesperson that can help teach, train, mentor, give you ideas and suggestions how to sell. So many candidates call and they ask for 30 minutes. Well, I'm busy. I don't have 30 minutes. But if you ask for 8 minutes, I'll probably give you 45 minutes. Okay. So there's a clear way to ask for appointments and times. If it's a phone call, do you have 12 minutes? I'd love to chat with you. If it's a face to face meeting, could we have coffee for 16 minutes? I've gotten some of the biggest business deals in my career by asking for a very short period of time. And in that time, I asked the question about, do you ever use recruiters? I was at Sally Beauty one day and meeting with their CHRO. I said, do you ever use outside search firms? In the first 8 minutes of our meeting, she said, yeah, we do. I said, okay, when? She said, when we have hard to fill jobs. I said, well, guess what? That's what I do. I fill jobs. And I got 3 jobs a day later. Okay. So um, it's okay to ask for short meetings. People respect that because people are busy.
Question, do referrals help in your job search, or is that more, or the connections you have help more?
I think both help. Jeff, this is a great lead into the prayer letter, and I've been giving this suggestion out for the last 12 years, 13 years. I guess I will write a book maybe one day on it. Um, it'll be a small book because the prayer letter is not a long prayer letter. It's not a long letter. All of you have gotten this letter in the past. It says, read this prayer 10 times, send it to 10 people in the next 10 minutes, or you're going to die and go to hell. Okay. So we know what the prayer letter says, but in job search, that doesn't work. So in job search, one of the things we want to do first before we start looking and talking about the prayer letters, we want to an Excel spreadsheet. It's the old-fashioned way, but it's the only way to do it with everybody that you know in your network. People that you've worked for, people that have called on you, people that have called on you. If you're in a position where you have bought products before, they've been salespeople that called on you. They know where the jobs are at because they're out in the market selling to all the Danielles in the DFW market or wherever Danielle's from. They know all the other executives. They know the jobs that are open. They're amazing people to network. They'd love to place you or recommend you to a role because if you get to that job, you're more likely to buy from them than the person that was there before. So people that you've worked for, people that you've worked with, people that have worked for you, people that you met on planes, people that you met at conventions, people that you play soccer with, people that you go to church with, neighbors of yours, friends of yours. Everybody should be in your network because what did I tell you before? Your network is your net worth. Okay. And in job search, your net worth is really important because if you had a way to engage 100 extra people or 200 in some of your cases every day to help you with your job search, you would get to the finish line a lot quicker, right? It would make sense, you would, and it does. So, first thing is, I want you to take a couple of weeks and make a list of all the people that you've worked with, all those names, email addresses, and phone numbers go into this Excel spreadsheet. That's it. If you want to have a note section, where you keep notes on conversations you've had or maybe a way to remember how you know that person, that's great, but not mandatory. You've made that list, takes 2 or 3 weeks. You've made that list. Now we want to activate that list. And when we activate that list, what I'm talking about is I'm literally talking about you picking up the phone and calling every one of these people. Okay. If you get them on the phone, it's just a simple, hey, Jack, Kurt here. I'd love to chat with you for 6 minutes. I'm actively looking for a new job, and I'm just confident that you have a lot of connections in the market, and maybe you know somebody that would be interested in getting to know me. Call me back at any time. I know you're busy. Look forward to catching up with you and hearing how the family is. Have a great day. That's it. Short, quick message. Okay. You get them on the phone, the same message. It's Jack, Kurt here. Hey, I greatly appreciate your time today. I'm actively looking for a new job. Some of the target companies I'm looking at include, and you can give them a couple of the companies that you're looking at. Um, if you or anybody you know that you work with or you are in your network that has contacts with these companies, I'd really appreciate an introduction. You're not asking these people, it's really important. You're not asking these people for a job. Make that clear. You're not asking these people for a job. You're asking them to keep an open mind, keep their, you know, keep keep your eyes open. If you hear of anything, I would love the opportunity to reconnect or to get that introduction. Okay. So you've made all these phone calls, you've gotten through that whole list. Now, when you get them on the phone, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure you've got their email address right. People do change email addresses often. So you might think you've got the right email address, but just complicate the situation. Just, can I confirm the right email address? Because they may have one that they prefer messages like this to go to than at the office. Okay, you've now completed the hardest part of the exercise. Now what we want to do is your network has just expanded. But what did I tell you earlier? People forget really quickly what's going on, and they've got lives, they've got other issues going on. They may be looking for a job themselves. They're trying to figure out where they're going to take their wife for Valentine's Day. I mean, anything, number of things can be going on. So we want to make sure that throughout the course of our search, that we continue to update these people on what's going on. Okay, and the way that you do that is You gather all those email addresses in one bunch and you put them into a BCC. No twos, no CCs. Okay, BCC. So when people hit a reply all, it goes nowhere. All BCC. You can put, I think you can put 250 names in a BCC. In the subject line, it says great people know great people. And then in the body, it says, I continue to look for new opportunities. Some of the target companies that I'm looking at this month include, and you give them 3 or 4 companies. If you or anybody in your network has contacts with these companies or companies like these, I greatly appreciate an introduction. Feel free to forward this note on to anybody in your network. And if there's anything I can do for you or a friend, don't hesitate to call anytime. I really appreciate your valuable time, and I'll be back in touch in 30 days. This will accelerate your search, believe it or not. And I know many of you are on the phone are skeptical and you're thinking, this is crazy. Why would I do that? But now you've got 100 or 150 or 200 people that you're talking to every month that are going to actively be looking for, considering opportunities that come across their desk. It will accelerate your search. So if you're uncomfortable with this and you don't like the suggestion, that's okay. I encourage you to call a friend of yours that you've worked with in the past and ask them directly, hey, if I were to call you or if I were to send you this message every month, what would you think? And I would be very surprised if any one of them would say, hey, anything you can do to help accelerate your job search. If somebody told you this is going to work, I'd follow it because they probably know more than I do because I haven't had to look for a job in 30 years. Okay. The bottom line, it works. I tell one story about a CFO. CFOs, sorry to step on anybody's toes if you're a CFO or in the financial field, but a lot of CFOs are not salespeople. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't feel comfortable putting themselves out there. They're more, they're just not that atypical person. So I met with this guy, and I remember where I met him in Starbucks in Highland Park Village, and somebody had recommended that he come and talk to me. So we spent about an hour having coffee, and he was just intimidated to begin with because not only the fact that he was the CFO of a company, but he had started with this company when he was 16 years old, and he was 54. One job his whole life. Not one job, but one company his whole life. And the third generation decided they wanted somebody younger in that role. And so that's why he was released. He had the deer in the headlights. He didn't know where to start to look for a job. He didn't, I mean, he was afraid of his own shadow. And I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but he was just really nervous. And I get that. And I understand that. And that's why I'm here today to hopefully reduce some of that tension and give you some new tools and ideas that will help accelerate your search. And he said, you want me to do what? You want me to call all these people? He said, you're crazy. And I said, well, think about it. I mean, I'm not crazy. It will work. It will help you. But I know you got to get past that, stage in thinking that this is a crazy idea. He called me 5 months later and he got 4 job offers in one week. That's the way it normally happens. Job offers come in multiples. They don't come in individuals. They come in multiples, and I hope they come in droves for everybody on this phone. But it does work. It will accelerate your search. But if you're not comfortable with it, I understand. Revise it how you want to, but you've got to let your network know that you're actively looking, and you got to do more than just putting that rainbow around your, the wreath on your LinkedIn profile. You've got to actively tell people you're looking for a new job, and that if you tell them over time and over time, the bank will return. It will start funding you. I promise. Other questions, Jeff?
That was it right now. I did put a copy of that prayer letter in the chat window so you can
Good.
download that. So when you click on it and download it, just remember where it goes on your computer because you'll disappear in electron land if you don't find it anywhere, but it's out there. So I'm going to stop there. The only other question was when was that presentation going to happen that you talked about with Terry Sullivan? He'll be
Yep.
with us on the 24th in 2 weeks. Next week, our speaker is going to be Ruth Lipsky. She's going to talk about back to basics, making LinkedIn work for you. Ruth looks for Lee Heck Harrison and she works with job seekers every day. So Her presentation is full of some really good information also. So join us at least the next two Tuesdays for LinkedIn Tuesday. Tomorrow, the practice interview team is meeting in person. They meet in person on the first, second, third, and fifth Wednesdays of the month. On the fourth Wednesday of the month, they are online only, so anybody anywhere can watch an interview happen. They schedule 3 interviews per week. Tomorrow, Christ United Methodist Church on the corner of Coit and Parker in Plano. If you can go, please go, and you will learn something just by watching somebody else being interviewed. It makes a big, big difference. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, Networking the Old-Fashioned Way. Jay Arbetter will be with us. He works for UBS, and he's got a great story about how he networked through his career to get to where he is today. It's be really good presentation. You can join us in person or on Zoom, and all those Zoom links are on the careerusa.org website. You're welcome to join the Career DFW or Career USA LinkedIn groups. We've got over 16,000 people in the Career DFW group. You do not need to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join that group. I just started each of these LinkedIn groups when I started each of the websites. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career USA YouTube channel later this afternoon. If you'd like to, please subscribe to the channel. Every time we post a new video, you'll find out about it. On the channel, the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist. Every video I post goes into one of 7 different playlists. And then down at the very bottom where it says view full playlist by the red arrow, if you click on that, up will come a list of the dates in chronological order, who the speaker was, and the topic, and you can go back and watch any of these topics at your convenience. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list, you can just scan this QR code and send a blank email, or send a blank email to Career USA, the +sign, subscribe at groups.io. You'll never be spam because I control the list. Only I control the list. And I'll only send information out about what programming we're putting on that week. Please note, Career DFW is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Kurt is a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 17 years has just been to help you land your next great opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us today. Kurt, once again, thank you very, very much. And everybody have a great week.